And today, on the bit where we remind ourselves how politics should work, we'll be covering manifestos and how we used to decide who to vote for. I've been a Professor McGuinness when it comes to political ideologies for a very, very long time. Voter apathy really helped. People still don't vote in local elections. They don't quite understand the amount of influence the local authorities have in their lives. Even though the local authorities are the first level of power they come across through housing, hygiene, education. People don't really understand the importance of voting in local authority elections. They think the parliament's the everything. And this really is due to a lack of understanding, which seems to become prevalent in the last 15 to 20 years as digital culture has sort of taken front and centre. And that sorts of brings me on to what we were talking about when we were talking about the reminding myself how politics should work and how it used to work. Let's remind ourselves and any young people watching how democracy used to work and how it should work. So in this section today, we're going to talk about how we used to decide who to vote for before the footballification of politics and the current front runner, the cult of personality, which we've seen Trump pull off in the USA. So how did we used to do these things, folks? Well, political parties used to publish something called a manifesto. What is a manifesto? What is a political manifesto? A political manifesto is a public declaration by a political party or candidate outlining their key policies, aims and promises for governing. Typically released before an election to persuade voters they are the best choice, detailing plans for the economy, health, education, and so much more, to show what they do if they were elected. Key elements of a manifesto: policy proposals, specific plans for government action like tax cuts, health improvements, environmental initiatives, on and on. Vision and narrative explains the party's overall philosophy. Now, we were talking about philosophies before we go here, so let's go over what the philosophies are that affect us here at this point in time. We have socialism, we have liberalism, and we have neoliberalism all at play at this point in time. Okay, and fascism is also coming into play. So vision and narrative explains the party's overall philosophy and the big picture they want to create for the country. They're also used for candidate introduction. At every election, you get new candidates coming in and they want to be introduced with a manifesto in their area to show they're keen for the job. All right, the purposes of a manifesto: inform voters to clarify communication of what a party stands for, persuade voters to convince the electorate to vote for them by presenting appealing solutions to problems, accountability, serve as a benchmark for promises made during the campaign which parties are expected to implement if they win. Format: traditionally a written document, but can also be a visual document with posters and videos, or presented in speeches. Often includes memorable slogans, which is quite interesting because that's where we've been for the last wee while. We get Brexit done and Labour for change. Three-word slogans seem to be how politics works today. Now, back when prior to the digital age, if you wanted to view a party manifesto, there was a few ways of getting it. You could go direct to your branch, if you remember, maybe stick a couple of quid and they give you a copy. Back before the digital age, newspapers, depending on whether they were left, right or centre leaning, would serialise whatever party's manifesto they favoured, so you could actually get it in the press. Or you could go to your local library, where all the parties would have had a copy of their manifesto posted. Now, of course, the digital age means it should have been easier to get access to political parties' manifestos. But as it turns out, they don't really write them anymore. They really don't write them anymore. You get a vague outline of what they think they represent and what they think they might be able to do without making any concrete promises. Now, the thing about a manifesto was it laid out exactly what it was that the political party you were voting for intended to do in their time in government. I think there's only one party left on these islands that are still producing a proper manifesto, and that's the SNP, actually. They still offer a vision and the route, and the record in government is about 89 to 95% of policies announced in manifestos being implemented, and that's pretty good. But any young people watching this, advice on future voting intentions: stay away from the cult of personality. Stay away from the footballification of politics, where you've got a red flag, a blue flag, a yellow flag, an orange flag, a fascist flag. Stay away from that stuff. Go back to how it should be done. Look for political parties' manifestos on the run-up to an election and read them. And choose who you're going to vote for, based on the manifestos, because that's how we used to do it prior to the digital age. It's how it should be done, and it's where we need to get back to. If we're going to clean up politics, whether it be in independent Scotland or UK-wide, we have got to be much clearer in our minds on who it is and what it is we are voting for. So get your scarf off, forget the cult of personality, and start looking at what's in your best interest by reading manifestos again. It's where we need to get to. We need to get to the point where those who have come behind us understand how the system should fucking work, and understand the fact that they need to vote in local elections, because your local council has a much bigger impact on you and your children's lives than fucking central government. So this week we were covering how voting should be done, how people should get the information that they make their vote on, the way things used to be done before political parties became football teams. And there endeth the lesson for today.